Even in the deepest void, a single luminous thought can change the entire course of a human life forever. Explore the glowing stories of innovation, hope, and the incredible brilliance of the human imagination. Subscribe today, and let's illuminate the world with great stories together. My mother used to introduce me at parties with a specific pause before my name. The kind of pause that told everyone in the room what she actually thought of me. "And this," she'd say, "is our daughter. Nora. Not our older daughter. Not our firstborn. Just our daughter." As if she were reading from a list of things she hadn't gotten around to returning yet. My brother Daniel, on the other hand, got full sentences. Full paragraphs. "This is Daniel. He just made senior associate at Hargrove and Weston, youngest in the firm's history. We're so incredibly proud." She'd beam when she said it. Actually beam. The way people look when the sun hits them at exactly the right angle. I stopped expecting equal footing somewhere around age 19. By 26, I had made peace with it entirely. Or so I told myself. I should tell you who I am before I tell you what happened, because context matters here. My name is Nora Vasquez. I am 31 years old. For the past 4 years, I have been quietly building a healthcare technology company called ClearPath. A platform that helps rural hospitals manage patient data across fragmented systems, the kind of unglamorous, invisible infrastructure work that nobody tweets about but every administrator in a mid-sized regional hospital quietly depends on. We had just closed a Series B round when my brother called to tell me about the engagement party. "It's going to be at the club," Daniel said. He meant Whitmore Country Club, our parents' second home. The place where our father had spent more Saturday mornings than he had ever spent with either of us. "Mom and Dad want the whole family there." I almost said no. I had a board meeting that Monday and a product launch the following week. And the idea of spending an evening being invisible in a room full of people who had known me since childhood, people who still asked if I was still doing the tech thing, was not exactly appealing. But Daniel sounded genuinely excited. And despite everything, despite years of being the afterthought to his highlight reel, I still loved my brother. He hadn't made me feel small on purpose. He was just the sun, and I had spent my whole life standing slightly outside the warmth. "I'll be there," I said. I drove myself. My parents lived 40 minutes away, and I'd learned years ago not to coordinate with them for things like this. Not because they'd forget to pick me up, but because they'd forget to tell me the plans had changed. The party was on a Saturday evening in late October, the kind of night where the air smells like wood smoke and everything feels slightly ceremonial. My mother met me at the entrance with the same expression she always had when she saw me at events. A quick assessment, a brief recalibration, and then a smile that arrived approximately 2 seconds too late. "Nora, you made it." She kissed me on the cheek. "You look tired." "Good to see you too," I said. My father was across the room with a group of men I recognized as partners from his consulting firm. He glanced over when I walked in, gave a small nod, the kind you give to a neighbor you see every few months, and turned back to his conversation. Daniel found me near the bar within 5 minutes. He looked genuinely happy, which made me genuinely happy for him, which made me feel complicated in the way that only family can make you feel complicated. "You came," he said, hugging me. Of course I came. I stepped back and looked at him. "Where's Melissa?" "Talking to Aunt Carol." "She's going to love you, by the way. She knows everyone." He said it casually, the way he said most things, without any awareness that "she knows everyone" had once been something people said about me too, in different rooms, different cities. Melissa Park was beautiful in the way that makes you want to know what she's thinking. Dark hair pulled back simply. A dress that looked expensive the way things look expensive when they're not trying to. She was laughing at something my Aunt Carol was saying when Daniel steered me over, and she turned toward me with the full attention of someone who has never learned to look distracted. "Melissa, this is Nora, my sister." She shook my hand with both of hers. "I've heard so much about you." I smiled. I doubted it. The evening arranged itself the way these things do. Dinner announced. people finding their seats with the choreography of mild social anxiety. I followed my mother toward the reserved family tables near the center of the room. She paused, scanned the seating cards, and then pointed me toward a table near the far right wall, partially obscured by a decorative partition they had placed between the main dining area and the corridor toward the kitchen. "You're over there, sweetheart." I looked at the table. It seated 8. 3 of the people already sitting there were my parents' neighbors, adult children. Polite strangers I'd exchanged maybe 40 words with over the course of my entire life. The 4th was my mother's cousin's husband, a man named Gary, who I was fairly certain did not know my name despite having attended 6 family events where I was present. The immediate family tables were directly behind me. I could see my father's chair from where I stood. I could see the floral centerpiece they'd chosen for Daniel's table, full and deliberate, the kind of arrangement that signals importance. My table had a smaller arrangement. 3 white carnations in a clear vase. I sat down. I ordered the salmon. I talked to Gary about the highway construction near his neighborhood for 11 minutes, which I know because I checked my phone twice. Across the room, I watched my mother introduce Daniel and Melissa to the partners from my father's firm. I watched her put her hand on Daniel's back, that proud, proprietary touch she had, while people smiled and shook hands and leaned in with genuine interest. My father stood next to Daniel with his shoulders back, the posture of a man displaying something he'd built. At some point during the main course, my mother appeared at my table to check on her cousin's husband, and she brought with her one of my father's colleagues, a man named Robert, who ran a consulting group that worked primarily with healthcare companies. "Robert, you know Gary, of course," she said. "And this is Nora, our daughter." The pause was there, right on schedule. Robert shook Gary's hand, exchanged a few words, and then turned to me with a polite smile. "And what do you do, Nora?" "Healthcare technology," I said. "Oh, interesting. Large company?" My mother was already half turning back toward the main tables. I saw her attention drift before I'd even answered. "Mid-size," I said. "We work with regional hospital networks, data infrastructure, mostly." He nodded with the gentle disengagement of someone who has received an answer that does not require follow-up. "Good for you," he said, and followed my mother back toward the people who mattered. I finished my salmon. I folded my napkin. I reminded myself that I had flown to 3 cities in the past 30 days and sat across from people who introduced themselves by the hospitals they had transformed, and that none of them had made me feel like a carnation in a clear vase. It didn't entirely work, but I tried. Dessert was being served when it happened. Melissa had been moving through the room the way people do at engagement parties, greeting, thanking, circling back, and she made her way naturally toward the outer tables, the ones near the partition, with the easy social grace of someone who genuinely wants to talk to everyone and not just the people with the best chairs. She sat down next to me with a small plate of chocolate torte, and the sigh of someone who has been standing in heels for 3 hours. "Finally," she said, "I've been trying to get to you all night. Daniel talks about you, but he somehow didn't mention that you're basically impossible to get to at one of these things." She laughed. "They have you tucked away over here." "I don't mind," I said, which was only partially true. "So healthcare tech, Daniel mentioned you run something. What's the company?" "ClearPath Solutions," I said. Melissa had been raising her fork. She set it back down. She looked at me with an expression I did not immediately know how to read. "I'm sorry, did you say ClearPath?" "Yes. ClearPath Solutions. The platform, the interoperability platform for rural hospital systems?" I felt something shift slightly in my chest. "That's us, yes. I presented your platform to my board 6 months ago." Her voice had gone very precise. The way voices go when someone is trying to confirm something they think they must be misunderstanding. "I'm the Chief Medical Officer at Ridgeline Health in Columbus. We've been in contract negotiations with your team since August." She stared at me. "You're not. Are you the Nora Vasquez?" I nodded slowly. She put both hands flat on the table. "You founded ClearPath." I did. She made a sound that was somewhere between a laugh and complete disbelief. She looked toward the main tables, then back at me. Daniel introduced me to you for 30 seconds and said you worked in tech. She shook her head. Nora, we have been trying to get a meeting with your CEO for 4 months. You're the CEO. Her voice had not been quiet. The table was not far from the main dining area. And the room, the way rooms do at a certain point in the evening when the music hasn't started and the speeches are finished, and conversation has settled into a low, comfortable hum. The room had gotten just quiet enough. My father's colleague Robert was 2 tables over. I watched him turn his head. I watched him say something to the man next to him. I watched his expression change from the polite blankness of earlier to something sharper, more focused, the look of a man doing rapid mental math. My mother was standing near the family table with a glass of wine. I saw the exact moment she registered Melissa's voice. The exact moment the words "founded ClearPath" reached her. The glass didn't move. Her face didn't move. She just became very, very still. My father turned around from his conversation. Melissa, entirely unaware of the geography she was rewriting, leaned toward me with the energy of someone who has just discovered that the person next to them on a flight is someone they've been emailing for months. The work you're doing with the Henderson County Network, we've been watching that implementation so closely. Do you know how hard it is to get clean data handoffs between systems that old? Everyone said it couldn't be done without a full system replacement. We had a good team, I said. You have a remarkable team. Our CTO literally printed out your white paper and put it on the department bulletin board. She laughed, then caught something in my expression. Some small, careful thing I hadn't managed to hide. And she glanced toward the family table, then back at me. Something passed through her face. Understanding, maybe. Or the beginning of it. She didn't say anything else about my parents. She was too smart for that. And too kind. But she reached over and touched my arm briefly, the way people do when they want you to know they see something without making you talk about it. And she said, I'm really glad I finally got to meet you. I excused myself to the restroom 20 minutes later. I stood at the sink and ran cold water over my wrists, and looked at myself in the mirror and did not cry, which felt like a significant accomplishment. When I came back out, Robert was waiting near the hallway entrance. He had the look of a man who had made a decision. Nora. He extended his hand. I owe you an apology for earlier. I had no idea who you were. ClearPath, your Series B round. We actually looked at it through a contact at Meridian. The board passed, and I've regretted it since. He gave a short, self-deprecating laugh. Your mother introduced you as their daughter, and I'm afraid I didn't. It's fine, I said. It's not really. He held my gaze. Would you be open to coffee? We have several hospital clients who are struggling with exactly the problem you've solved. I took his card. I told him I'd have my assistant reach out. Both of these things were true. I went back to my carnation table and finished the torte that Melissa had left on my plate, and looked at the room with the specific clarity that comes after you have decided, somewhere quiet and internal, that you are done requiring people to see you. My mother found me by the coat check at the end of the evening. She stood close to me, closer than she usually did. And she was doing the thing she does when she is deciding how to reframe something. A small, tight movement of her jaw, a looking slightly to the side. You never told us, she said, about the company. How big it had gotten. I put on my coat. You never asked. She made a small sound. Not an apology. My mother does not make apologies. She makes gestures in the direction of them, and hopes you'll meet her halfway. Robert Haynes has been a colleague of your father's for 15 years. The Ridgeline Health System is one of his biggest clients. She paused. You could have mentioned. I looked at her then directly, for a long moment. I thought about the pause before my name. I thought about 3 white carnations in a clear vase. I thought about 11 minutes of highway construction with a man named Gary. Good night, Mom, I said. I drove home on empty roads with the windows down even though it was cold, because I needed the air, and because I have learned over the years that there are certain feelings you have to let pass through you at speed, or they'll find somewhere to live permanently. I am not going to tell you that everything changed after that night. Because it didn't. Not overnight. Not the way it happens in the stories we tell ourselves. My father called the following Tuesday and talked for 6 minutes about Robert Haynes and what a small world it is, and how proud they've always been. And I listened to all of it without saying much. And when he was finished, I told him I had a meeting and I'd talk to him soon. Daniel called the same night. He apologized in the direct, uncomfortable way that actual apologies require. Not circling it, not contextualizing it, just, I should have told them. I knew and I said nothing, and that wasn't right. He was quiet for a moment. Melissa was furious with me. She seems like a good person, I said. She is. Another pause. She said you were gracious. I think she meant you were more gracious than the situation deserved. That one landed somewhere real. Melissa and I had coffee 2 weeks later, which turned into a 2-hour conversation about healthcare infrastructure that I genuinely did not want to end. She sent a formal meeting request to my team the following morning. We closed a contract with Ridgeline Health in February. I went to their wedding in the spring. I sat at a good table. Daniel put me there himself, close to the front, next to people he thought I'd want to talk to, with a proper centerpiece and everything. He walked me to my seat personally, which was unnecessary and a little awkward, and exactly right. My parents were there. My mother hugged me when she saw me, and held on for a moment longer than usual, which is as close as she gets. My father shook my hand, which is also as close as he gets. I am not naive enough to believe that a single evening rearranged the architecture of who we are to each other. But I watched my father introduce me to someone before the reception, and he used my name and my company's name in the same sentence, and he said the words, "She built it from nothing." And he said them like they were true, because they were, and because he finally had no reason left to say them any other way. I'm not telling you this story because I need you to be angry on my behalf, though I understand if you are. I'm telling it because I spent a long time believing that being seen was something other people got to decide for you. That the table they put you at was the table you deserved. It isn't. You can build something real and quiet and entirely yours, and one day someone will say your name in a room full of people who thought they already knew you, and the room will go still, and the only thing you'll feel, if you've done the work, if you've put in the years, is a small, steady satisfaction. Not because they finally see you, but because you never needed them to.